What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. This is the total takedown for UFC 277, presented to you by Pub Sports Radio, with lines presented by Superbook Sports. We broke down this entire card on Monday. Today we are talking totals, overs and unders. How long do we think these fights are going to last? And see if we can find a different angle to cash a few extra tickets. Hit the like button, share the video if you're an audio-only listener. Leave me a good review. We'd appreciate it. 5 stars, baby. Let's go. First fight of the night, Mike Mathetha, Blood Diamond, taking on Orion Cosce. We have got a total at 1.5 for this one. Over 1.5 is minus 130. Under 1.5 is plus 110. From what we've seen out of these guys, I think this is going to be relatively binary. Cosce does like to push that grappling. He likes to bully his opponents up against the fence, drag them to the floor. Mike may have gotten taken out by Jeremiah Wells in round 1. I'm not sure that Cosce is going to have the exact same level of finishing ability. Maybe he drags this thing late. Maybe it takes him to the second or the third round. He might even win a decision. But if he uses that grappling heavy game plan, I do think he gets it done. Mike, on the other hand, his win condition is head kick. He's going to need to take out Orion Cosce at range for this thing to work out. The problem is that head kick can come at any point, any time. I do think the under 1.5 at plus 110 probably holds, maybe some upside, because both guys should be able to finish in their own realm. But I kind of think Cosce's going to slow the pace down with that grappling. I kind of think we're going to see Mike Mathetha show off some new wrinkles, be able to defend a takedown or two, or stay safe even if he's on bottom. I do think we end up sliding just over this 1.5. I'll say over 1.5 at minus 130. Second fight on the card, Igor Potroya taking on Nikolai Negomereanu. Total set at 2.5 for this one. Over is plus 110. Under is minus 140. They set this one at 2.5, it looks like. And this one's tough, because Igor is a guy that mostly finishes people, but you go out on the regional scene and you see him go into decision with guys that are 0-5 and shit like that. Like, this guy could go 15 minutes with a lower level fighter. Nikolai is a fighter that you do not finish. This guy's got an absolute brick for a head. His chin really is the thing I'm relying on here in this fight. I'm going to say over. I think this fight goes over. Now, he might just boot Igor from the UFC, showing him that he's not on this level, because we know Nikolai does have some serious power in his hands. But if he doesn't get the finish, he does probably grind his way to a decision win, and he may even mix in some grappling. So, as terrifying as it sounds, I think I would lean over 2.5, but really not a total I'm interested in putting my money on. Ladies, coming up next, Ji-Yeon Kim taking on Jocelyn Edwards. Total at 2.5 again. Over is minus 360. Under is plus 300. And I really only see the finish coming from one side. I've talked about this earlier in the week. I think Kim is the only one of these two women capable of finishing this fight. So if you want to go violence, just bet Kim inside the distance. Jocelyn Edwards is not finishing Ji-Yeon Kim. It's simply not happening. So the over 2.5 is probably the way that we've got to pick it. But minus 360 women's MMA, nah, I'm not doing it. Let's move on. Michael Morales taking on Adam Fugit. Total again set at 1.5 for this one. Over is minus 105. Under is minus 115. Now, everybody's all super high on Michael Morales because of the way he took out Trevin Giles in his last fight. Adam Fugit is a actual member of this weight class, not somebody cutting down for the first time, not somebody whose durability is something that we're questioning. He is making his UFC debut. He will likely be at a speed disadvantage, so that under 1.5 is very much in play. But the one thing that Adam does have is he is a higher belt rank in jiu-jitsu than Michael Morales, and he is a college level wrestler. I think Adam can maybe hang in this fight, drag this thing a little bit late. It reminds me a lot of the Charles Johnson-Makaev fight from last week. Everyone's just counting this kid Adam out, and maybe he does get beaten this fight, but I also don't know that he's going to get starched in round 1 necessarily. So I'm going to lean to the over 1.5. I'm not betting this one. I'm not touching this total specifically with my money. We really need to take some notes on these guys, but I will say I'll lean over 1.5. Rafa Garcia taking on Drakkar Klose. We've got a 2.5 for this total here. Over is minus 215. Under is plus 190. The over makes so much sense to me. Rafa Garcia is not a guy that you finish, and prior to his last couple fights, Drakkar Klose has been a decision machine against UFC caliber competition. He got that step down. He bodied a couple of guys that don't belong here, and now everyone's thinking he's a finisher. I think we go back to the decisions. I think Rafa's going to push the grappling pace. I think Drakkar Klose is going to engage him in those grappling exchanges, and then there will be some boxing for the two of them. Round 3 might get hairy. We've seen Rafa slow down in that third round a couple different times, but I will say the over 2.5 makes sense to me here. Hamdy Alawahab taking on Don'Tale Mayes. Total set at 1.5. Over is minus 165. Under 1.5 rounds is plus 145. And this one's tough. This one's really tough. So we don't know a whole lot about Hamdy, right? He's supposedly a Greco-Egyptian Olympian, and he's a bare-knuckle FC boxer with really limited striking, winging big power hooks, just looking to put people down as quickly as humanly possible. Don'Tale Mayes is a work in progress. However, that work in progress is getting better. He is showing off big-time improvements every time we see him. Better range control, good striking, stiff jab. He's got the leg kicks. He's starting to work on the grappling. Just got his BJJ purple belt. I mean, I think the world is Don'Tale Mayes' oyster. Give him a couple more years. If he keeps going the way he is, he could potentially be something in the heavyweight division. Hamdy, on the other hand, we have no idea if he's legit or not. He could just be a one-and-done type of fighter in this particular position. It all comes down to his game plan, because filling in on short notice like this, he's probably going to go ham in round one. He's probably going to understand that he needs to get this thing done early because he won't have cardio for a 15-minute grappling match with someone like Don'Tale Mayes. So I'm going to go ahead and say under 1.5 at plus 145, because Hamdy either comes out early, lands a bomb, or Don'Tale Mayes is going to take this thing over. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see another hip thrust TKO from Don'Tale Mayes when he gets this tired Hamdy down on the mat, maybe even at the very beginning of round two, but just squeezing under that under 1.5 mark. So I'll take violence here in that one. Rafael Alves taking on Drew Dober. Total again at 2.5. The over is plus 140. The under 2.5 is minus 160. Violence makes a whole lot of sense to me here. Rafael Alves is a guy that comes out early, quick, and fast, and he can take out anybody in that first round. Big, explosive power, tight squeeze, but if he doesn't get it done in round one, he tends to take round two off and fall apart almost as this fight goes deeper. Now, maybe the cardio, maybe the pacing, that's something that he's been working on. We'll have to wait for Saturday to find out. But if he comes out the way that we have generally seen him, he's either going to starch Drew Dober in round one, or Drew probably takes over. And the way this guy boxes, the way this guy moves, and how fast his hands are, I can see him finishing Rafael Alves in the second or the third round if this thing gets going. So I would say under 2.5 at minus 160 is going to be the pick on that one for me. Matt Semelsberger taking on Matthew Morono. We've got the Great White Shark on Shark Week. Let's go. Total at 2.5. Over is minus 175. Under is plus 155. And this is another one where, honestly, I only see one side finishing, right? Matt Semelsberger is the one out of these two guys that has the power. He's got the size advantage. He's got the reach advantage. He's younger. Alex Morono is essentially a gatekeeper at this point in his career, riding a 3-fight win streak. A questionable 3-fight win streak at best, but he knows what he's doing in the cage, and he can definitely get the job done. He's a volume-based guy, stays in your face, forces a brawl, but we've seen him knocked down and knocked out before when he gets a little too over-aggressive on his opponents. So if you're going to look for a finish prop, I'd say Matt's probably the side to get it done. But if Matt doesn't hit that button, if he doesn't get that one-hitter quitter, this thing's flying over. So the over 2.5 minus 175 is going to be the pick there. Both these guys more than capable and have plenty of cardio to get over that 2.5 round mark. Anthony Smith taking on Magomed Ankalaev. Total again at 2.5. We're getting a lot of 2.5s on this card. Over is minus 155. Under is plus 135. And I just don't want to touch this total. I really don't. So Magomed Ankalaev, he's a guy that we know has serious power in his hands. We know his ground and pound is nasty. He can absolutely flip a switch and finish somebody if he wants to, but he hasn't done that in so long we can't count on it. He likes to play the range game at space. Time his opponents, come in and land a couple of small shots, make sure he's in complete control of the fight at all times. But we've seen him hurt. We've seen him dropped. We saw him get tapped by Paul Craig. Now, that would have gone over the 2.5, but it still happened inside the distance. Anthony Smith is a guy who's taller and longer than Magomed Ankalaev. He's a better MMA grappler than someone like Paul Craig is. He'll be able to look for reversals, be able to get on top. He won't just be playing guard. He can attack Magomed's lead leg with calf kicks. He can hit him with that long stinging jab of his. This is going to be a fight, folks. And if this is a fight, I'm not convinced that somebody doesn't get finished. I would look at Anthony Smith maybe being the more potent finisher in this fight because Smith has been a guy that's so tough, so durable, so hard to put away. I'm not convinced that Magomed Ankalaev is going to be the first guy in the last couple fights to actually get that job done within 3 rounds. But I know Anthony Smith's game plan is to come out here and step on the gas pedal until one of these guys breaks. So I kind of do expect violence in this spot. I think a nice little hedge spot is if you go over 2.5 or Ankalaev by decision, and then Anthony Smith inside the distance. Maybe that's kind of the way you approach it to get plus money on both sides of this thing. My gut says under 2.5. And this is, you know, if you want to look at the numbers, you want to look at the stats, it makes sense to go over 2.5 at -155. But I've just got a feeling that someone's going to sleep in this fight. And I've got a feeling Anthony Smith is going to make a lot of people's heads turn on Saturday. Haven't bet it yet, but I'm looking at it very, very hard. Again, the hairs on the back of my neck have been doing good work for me lately as far as avoiding things or getting on things and stuff like that. And I mean, I know we swung and missed big with our guy Alexandre Gustafsson last week, but besides that, it's been pretty on point. Something's telling me Anthony Smith gets it done this week. Alex Perez taking on Alexandre Pantoja, another 2.5 here. The over -145, the under +125. And again, I think the over makes some sense here. So Perez, the big questions around him is we haven't seen him in 2 years. He's had 6 consecutive canceled fights, so we don't know what he's been doing. Has he been improving? Probably. But what does he look like now? We have no clue because it's been so long since we've seen him in the cage. Pantoja's a guy that can do it all. He can scramble, he can wrestle. He's got jiu-jitsu, he's got boxing. He hits hard, he's durable, he's hard to finish. Alex Perez has been the guy that is choked every time he's taken that step up in competition, though. He can beat up on guys that are lower level, but as soon as he gets into the contender circle, he falters a bit. But what he does have is a serious offensive wrestling game. This guy can take people down and grind time. If that's the case, we've seen Pantoja play guard. We've seen Pantoja go on his back foot. I think the over 2.5 makes some sense here because I think both these guys will be tough and gritty enough to take this thing deep. Pantoja maybe snatches a neck. Perez always has that low leg kick TKO. I don't think that's working on Alexandre if we're being completely honest, though. So I will say over 2.5 at -145. Sergei Pavlovich taking on Derrick the Black Beast Lewis. Total set at 1.5 for the big boys here. Over 1.5 is +130. Under 1.5 -150. Violence makes sense here. Pavlovich is a guy who's never gotten out of the first round in the UFC. Win or lose, he's never seen round 2. Derrick Lewis, on the other hand, likes to take his time a little bit. He, for some reason, can stretch a fight that should not make it 2 minutes, 2:15. He gets it all the way to the end of the fight sometimes when it just doesn't make sense. It should never get there. He's got crazy fight-changing power. And Sergei is a guy that I'm thinking is still a little green, but he's got reach advantages. He's got the youth advantage. He's probably improving, whereas Derrick Lewis isn't necessarily. So I do think at some point one of these guys is going to land a big shot, similar to Derrick Lewis's last fight, where once somebody is wobbled, that's it. It will end shortly thereafter, no matter who ends up getting their hand raised. So I'll say under 1.5, -150. Co-main event time, Kai Kara-France taking on Brandon Moreno. Total set at 4.5 for this one. The over is -160. The under is +140. And I do think that the over, again, makes some sense. I think we're in for some very competitive fights and some close, tight decisions. Brandon Moreno, if he puts Kai Kara-France on the back foot, I think he's going to have a bit of a hard time landing that big power shot. We've seen these guys go back and forth. We've already had a fight to watch with the way this thing plays out. Both of them obviously have made improvements since then, but the one thing I'm never doubting is Brandon Moreno's chin. So if we end up in a ground scramble, I'm favoring Brandon Moreno. Kai Kara-France has improved in that area. He's shown he can get back to the feet where he does his best work. But Brandon Moreno's striking has come leaps and bounds since the last time these guys fought, and I think he had his best success against Kai Kara-France actually in the striking situations in round 2 and 3 in their first fight. So I do think that Brandon Moreno can stand with Kai Kara-France. Brandon Moreno's not much of a knockout guy. He's more of a submission guy, maybe a club and sub guy, maybe a volume TKO type of guy. But Kai Kara-France, I'm not questioning this guy's heart. I'm not questioning his determination or his ability to survive in a gunfight. So if someone's finishing this fight, I think it's going to be Kai Kara-France by knockout. But like I said before, I'm never questioning the chin of Brandon Moreno. That kid is made out of solid steel. So I do think we're going to go 25 minutes. I think we could get another very close and competitive fight in this one. Maybe even look at some split decision props. Over 4.5, -160 is the pick there. Main event, Amanda Nunes, Julianna Pena Total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is -110. Under 2.5 is also -110. We got to pick them, folks, here for this one. And I think, again, the over just makes so much sense. We've talked about the zigzag theory, right? No two fights are ever exactly alike. Amanda Nunes, talking about injury concerns in her last fight, had a big adrenaline dump, gassed out, tapped out in round 2. I think that a lot of the things that happened in that first fight absolutely can happen again here in the second fight. However, I think they're going to take a little bit longer. Amanda Nunes has taken this fight extremely seriously. She wants her belt back, and she showed off at the, you see like the photo shoots and stuff like that. Dana White was tweeting out the pictures, the UFC official handle tweeting things out. She's much slimmer than she was in that last fight. If anything, her cardio should be a little bit more on point for this one, and that leads me to believe that this is a fight that's probably going to go a little bit deeper. Women's MMA, we usually see those fights go a little bit deeper. We've seen Amanda Nunes go a full 25 minutes before. Even though she has looked a little bit rough the deeper those fights get, she has made it the full 25 minutes before. So I think we're going to get over this 2.5. I wouldn't rule out a Julianna Peña finish in the late rounds, 4 or 5, something along those lines. But 2.5 in a women's MMA fight, yeah, I think we can get there. That's the total takedown, everybody. Like I said, do me a favor, smash the like button, leave us a good review if you're listening to this bad boy on audio. Check out Superbook Sports, and make sure you subscribe to Pub Sports Radio. We'll be coming to you tomorrow for the undefeated post-weigh-in show, busting out the tinfoil hat there for you, and make sure you hang out with us on the live stream over on Pub Sports Radio on YouTube. Thank you very much. Good luck on all your degenerate action this week, and let's roll.